Hey guys, welcome back to another Reddit video. If you do enjoy this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now to the story. My ex-fiancée left me after she almost died but took my heart with her. I'm not a Redditor, but I'd presume this would fall under an off-my-chest category. I'm not really sure how this works, so I'll start my story off with a few prefaces. I am a 25-year-old man and have only been in one relationship my entire life. I never even had those small innocent relationships growing up. So she was my first everything surrounding a romantic relationship. In the relationship I had an issue with porn and we were working through it. I never made her feel at fault for it and would answer any questions she had and always reassured her any way I could. My fiancé and I were deeply in love and almost inseparable. We never wanted to be away from each other if we could help it. We fought here and there, but it almost never went into the next day. We were together for 3 years and 11 months, lived together for 3.5 years, and were engaged for about the same. In case anyone is wondering why such the long engagement, the actual title of being married wasn't crazy important to us, so we wanted to wait to get married until we could make it as close to the perfect wedding as possible. We all lived in Arizona and her family decided to move to Pennsylvania and she wanted us to go with them, and I didn't have much in Arizona, so I agreed, and her family wanted us to move in with them so we could all save up money faster. The main rifts in our relationship was with her family. They pretty much would have an issue if you didn't live your life the way they saw fit. So most of our fights was her trying to convince me to hide certain beliefs I held around her family, like guns, my diet, and other small things like that, or even her family getting upset with me because I wouldn't say hi to them the right way. So basically I would just get nitpicked. And for the life of me I can't figure out how it all went down this way, but we got stuck living with them in Pennsylvania as well, with a mix of guilt trip and money saving tossed in to convince us to do it. Now for the reason I'm writing this. I remember this all like it happened yesterday. My fiancé was 24 at the time and I was 23. On September 18, 2022, at roughly 9 p.m. she started struggling with her breathing, couldn't catch her breath, and her inhaler wasn't working. So she was rushed to the emergency room. They were able to help her get her breathing under control for the meantime, and while I was sitting at her bedside with her hooked up to a couple machines, and she ended up having to use one of those portable toilets to go poop, and due to all the wires wasn't able to reach to wipe. And I always said in our relationship that poop is gross and I don't think I'd ever be able to get myself to wipe her ass, but I guess when push comes to shove it's not even a problem. The doctors said they needed to keep her for observation, and no matter how much we persisted they wouldn't let me stay with her. So we kissed goodbye and I went back to the house and went to sleep. I was woken up at 8 a.m. to be told that she took a turn for the worse, and that one of her lungs collapsed. And to top it off, saw that I had a missed call from her at 6 a.m. I must say that due to the toxic nature of her family we hid the fact that we vaped. When I got there she was intubated and rocking back and forth trying to breathe but couldn't. She was having a panic attack. And I held her and kissed her forehead, but nothing could get her to calm down. They ended up having to sedate her. While they were discussing what to do I made sure to tell the doctors that she vaped, just in case that could be the reason why. They ended up having to fly her in a helicopter to a better hospital. We immediately hopped in our vehicles and drove down. Every step of the way I made sure to tell each doctor and nurse I came in contact with that she vaped. And it wasn't until they needed her mother's permission to put her on ECMO, which I believe is just a lung/heart bypass machine, I finally piped up and told her family that her and I were vapors. And told them that it took me so long to admit because I just wasn't sure what the right thing to do was. By the way, at this point it was Wednesday night, so from there on out her family started berating me every morning, telling me how much of a terrible person I am, and giving me shit for not showing my emotions the right way every day before we made our way up to the hospital. I just am unable to cry or show emotions in front of others. My fiancé was the only one I could cry in front of. Which was also confusing considering that I may not have cried in front of them but was unable to eat for 3 days straight. By the way, they also had her phone, which my fiancé and I paid for, and were going through it and reading all of her messages. So come Sunday, I guess I beat them to the hospital. BTW, I was also barred Friday from getting to see her by myself. When they walked in, I was just sitting in the waiting room and they walked by me to tell me how disgusting I am and how much of a terrible person I am, because they read through mine and her messages and saw some of the messages where her and I had talked dirty to each other. And not to get too dirty, but I'll just leave it with we were very kinky, and she liked to call me names like daddy and she liked to be degraded in the bedroom. Then her dad told me that I no longer have his blessing to marry his daughter, and that I can sit here all day but I'm not allowed to go back there and see her. And then her mom waved me over and started to ask why I'm so disgusting, and I finally after 4 days had enough and said I think I better move out and support her from a distance, and then they started yelling insults at me as I walked towards the door, and I sadly couldn't contain myself and yelled back at them that they are terrible, controlling and toxic people. And when I got back to the house, their family friend was there to prevent me inside without a cop present, but when I went to the police they told them they couldn't prevent me from entering the house, so I had some buddies from work help me pack up my stuff and I lived with one of them. I called down to the hospital every day, but what I didn't realize is I was being blocked from hearing anything. And then come Thursday day night I called in and she answered the phone and was saying things like I abandoned her and didn't even care about her while she was in a medically induced coma. And I tried to set the record straight, but she wouldn't listen, and I could hear her family from another phone saying don't listen to him, he's lying and things like that. The call was cut short and then her and I texted where the truth came out and she finally believed me. Then Saturday I get a call while I'm on my way home from work and she tells me to come see her, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. I get down there and they let me in past visiting hours and we just cry and cuddle and kiss. And then I end up having to leave around 11 p.m. So I kissed her goodbye and she gave me her hair tie. And then I come back the next day after work and it's not something I'm proud of, but she ends up taking me into the hospital bathroom so that we can have sex. And then when we get back into her hospital room she starts talking to me about what we're going to do, and she has the idea of her staying with her family until she is strong enough to take care of herself, and then just eloping with me to Virginia to live with my brother. And we get my brother on board with it. Then we cuddle for a little while longer, I kiss her goodbye and then we talk on the phone my whole way home. When I get home I take both of our rings. She didn't want hers because then her family would know that I was there, and tie them together with the hair tie that broke and put it on a necklace. Then on Wednesday she calls me to tell her that she's been seeing a therapist and the therapist said that she needs to learn to love herself, in regards to her past boyfriends and such, which isn't my business to be explaining, again, and that we can't be together anymore. I just mentally shut down from then on. She kind of texts with me but those start to slow and I discover a month later she has a boyfriend, and then 2 months after that she calls and wants to tell me something, and I cut her off to say what, that you have a boyfriend, and she's like yeah but not anymore and I'm also pregnant with his kid. And we had a 40-minute conversation about that, and I got her to admit that the reason we broke up was because she pretty much had to choose between me and her family. And after that, that was pretty much it. So now as it stands over a year later I'm not any less in love with her. I tried having a one-night stand to see if that'd help me get over it and it didn't. I actually felt worse because of it and like I had cheated on her. So now I just have no drive to even try and get back out there, on top of just feeling wrong for doing so. And yes, I've tried therapy and it wasn't helping at all. I'm not really sure how to end it, but I hope this all sounds coherent enough. Afterthought. What I'm stuck with the most is that I sat up in that hospital for days reading some of the poems I wrote for her, singing our songs to her, and just plain talking to her. I'm not a religious man, but I spent every day and night asking God to let me swap places. Her family just plain didn't understand that I was suffering in silence, preparing to bury the woman I love and would have died or even killed for. That was my woman, my best friend. The woman whom truly understood me, and I thought I understood her. The image of her in that hospital bed will forever be burnt into my mind. And sadly the thought that still brings me joy was while she was unconscious-ish, not really sure how that all works, I felt like she could still hear me, and I was reading to her while holding her hand, and I saw tears coming out of her eyes, and I said, "Do you want me to continue?" and she squeezed my hand 3 times. By the way, before all this happened, while we walked around stores or whatever while holding hands, we'd squeeze each other's hands 3 times as a way of saying I love you, so I just knew that meant she knew I was there. Oh, and what does bring me some peace is if I came in the room while her heartbeat was approaching 180, if I just held her hand and start telling her how much I loved her, her heartbeat would start slowing down and even out. Sorry for dragging this out for so long. As I started typing, more and more memories kept flowing and couldn't help but add a few.